Welcome to the Diary of Discovery, the podcast where we delve deep into the human experience of healing and transformation. I'm your host, Jackie Clark, and each week we will sit down with inspiring individuals who have embarked on their own personal journeys of healing and self-discovery. From overcoming trauma to navigating life's challenges, our guests share their raw and honest stories, offering insights, wisdom, and hope to all who tune in. So grab your favorite cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and join us as we uncover the power of resilience, courage, and the pursuit of authenticity. This is the Diary of Discovery. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. We are back again for another solo episode, and I have so much that I want to talk to you guys about when it comes to this journey of healing. But first, before we do any of that, we need to do a marathon update. I had a number of you messaging me to say, oh my gosh, you said you were going to marathon update after running and you didn't. So I wanted to say, I did the marathon, guys. I did it. We got through it. It was amazing. On the actual course, there were moments that were so hard, moments that genuinely tested me to my absolute limits, and moments where I literally thought, I'm not going to be able to finish this. I'm not going to be able to do this. Like, I don't know how people do this. And at the same time, there was such resolve in wanting to complete, in like there was like something that I just wanted to prove to myself on my own journey that like I could do this. And the cutoff for the marathon was 6 hours, and I got in 5 hours 40 something. It was absolutely incredible to go through that process and achieve something that I had really kind of built up in my mind, like after the experience of ending up in an ambulance in the like almost a year ago now, actually. um it was really important for me to get through that and get to the other side, and yeah, just like prove something to myself, inside myself, that it's possible, like I am capable. And I think like this is a really big journey when you're going on a healing journey, to start to get more comfortable with you being the only person that you actually need to impress or, make proud. Because a lot of people will really push for recognition from other people as like a marker of success, as a marker of how well they're doing in life. And this is a really interesting kind of process, I think, on the journey of healing, when you can start to shift away from that and you can start to kind of observe yourself and the world around you, and not be so stuck in, caught in the actual like feeling of what's going on. So if I think about that marathon experience, I remember the first part of the marathon was really good. So for anyone who doesn't know, a marathon is 42 kilometers. And the very first part of that marathon was actually really good. I got to about 25 kilometers and I was feeling really strong. I was like, everything was going well. I was on like well on track for my times. I was like, okay, I'm probably going to be able to get in at, gosh, about like a 5:15, a 5:20 marathon. I was like super, super proud and super stoked. And then I started to get real pain in my hip. And this is like a problem that has been with me for a while. It hasn't flared up in so long. But obviously, when you're going long distances, this is quite normal, like for things to happen. And there were genuine moments in that like in that run, where I wasn't actually sure if I was going to be able to make it. I wasn't actually sure if I was going to be able to like get to the end. So I'm running, my hip is hurting, so I'm starting to walk a little bit more, and I'm starting to, like run, walk, and after a while, like I can feel a massive blister like forming on my toe. And if you're squeamish, like skip the next 3 seconds. But my baby toe was basically just a whole blister. Um, so I could literally feel like that pain starting to build, and it was starting to get really hot. We were like inland in the middle of South Africa in the middle of summer. It was starting to get really, really hot. And there were moments where I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this. And I remember there was a moment where I got on my phone and I was voice noting ChatGPT and asking it to basically work out like if I've gotten to 25 kilometers in this amount of time and I've got a 6 hour cutoff, like how slowly can I do the remaining X kilometers of my marathon? And I was getting back this feedback constantly, like, yeah, you can slow down, like this is okay. And I remember at one of the kilometer marks, I basically like tipped over what would get me if I carried on at that pace, what would get me like in under the 6 hour mark. And my dad has always been like a big part of my running journey, and he supported me on my first marathon where I almost like ended up in an ambulance and my body literally thought I was going to die. So he was on the other end of the phone, like messaging me and like checking in with how I was doing. And he actually video called me at one point, and it was like just after this moment where I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. And I remember saying to him, like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. And he said to me, you can do the distance. Like, you can definitely do the distance. Don't worry about your time. He was like, if it takes you 6 hours and 2 minutes or 6 hours and 15 minutes, like, don't worry about your time. You can definitely do the distance. And I remember, like, in that moment, I was like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I completely hear you. And as I put down the phone to him, something just shifted inside of me. And I was like, absolutely not. It's like, absolutely not. I am finishing this in under 6 hours. And I started to like jog again and started to like move a little bit faster. And then I remember seeing the 5 kilometer marker and like sending him a picture. And he was like, wow, you got there really quick. Like, that's really good. He was like, just a park run to go. Like, you're going to be absolutely fine. And I was like, okay, like, we're going to be okay. Like, I'm going to do this. And then I remember voice like video messaging my husband and saying to him like I'm at the 5 kilometer mark, I'm probably about 45 minutes away from the end, like I'm gonna do this, like I'm dying but I'm gonna get there. And like we had other people from our running club that had come with us, and I was like sending a message into like the little group that we had of like how many kilometers I'd done, like a picture of my watch so they could see where I was. And like I was definitely the slowest person on the road that day from our club. There was only 6 of us, but still, like I was like just telling everyone like I'm still alive and I'm coming. And then I remember coming over, like coming up the last hill and like coming down towards like the last kilometer. And suddenly, like out of nowhere, I just see my husband walking towards me, like on the course. And I've never been so happy in my life. I was absolutely shattered at this point. And he literally came running up to me and he grabbed my hand and he was like, come on, babe, like you can do this. Like you're so close, you've got so much time. And he was like, we're doing this together. We're like getting in, we're getting you into this finish. And it was literally just like the most incredible feeling to like go through that process and have so many people who were willing to support me through that process, so many people who really cared about me getting to the end of that, like as much as I did. And it was just like so wonderful to get to the end. Like, I remember going over the finish line and just being so proud of myself, absolutely exhausted, but so proud of myself that I had like achieved this thing. And I think, like, especially because there'd been so much nervous system work that I had to do to make it possible to actually even do that distance, I was really, really impressed with the person that I became on the journey. and like how I showed up for myself. And it's really interesting because like since then, like I have cut my running down quite a lot. Like I'm not running as long a distances, I'm not running as much as I used to. And I'm like balancing back out and like putting hiking back in and like more yoga and just like more of a variety of fitness, which is I'm really enjoying. But I think that there will always be this like I have done that. Like I'm part of the 1% of the world that have done that. And that makes me really, really proud of myself and like the journey that I've gone on. So I think that that is like really, really incredible. And then I guess like going on from that, like there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about, like around the experience, but also around some of the other work that I've been doing like since then. And like one of the big things I've been doing is I've been part of a really small community team that has been organizing a massive community event. So we had like 4,000 people come to this event, massive logistics, and I was part of like a three-person team that was organizing that. And again, like it's a really interesting thing when you go through and you say yes to something that is going to extend you in the moment. So before saying yes to this event, I had the biggest event that I'd organized or been part of a team to organize was a 500-person event back in the UK when I lived in the UK. Now suddenly it's, 4,500 people, like very different logistics, very different type of event, and dealing with loads of suppliers, loads of partners, loads of brands, like loads of individual people. And it was really, really interesting again, like going through that process. I initially was just helping them to like find a person to do this role. I wasn't like going to do the role myself. And then like once I mapped out the role and I had got some people like who had said that they would, potentially be able to do it, it was really interesting because like the people who came forward, I was like, yeah, but I could genuinely do a better job than them. Like I could genuinely do this really, really well. So I spoke to the team and I said, listen, like I could do this for you guys, like I could be part of this team, and like support you in this way. And it was really, really incredible because I went from having not done an event of this size to not only doing the event, but literally having one of the best years that the event has had in growth, in numbers, in brand partnerships, in like future stability, like it just in so many ways, there were so many positives that came out of it. And I think like there's like a real lesson here in like trusting the process. Like I knew, even though I'd never done something of this scale and I was a little bit nervous and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is really big to hold. And I could feel myself expanding. I could feel myself like holding this and holding my own business, like having really long days, but still feeling really energized and really good about how I was showing up and what that meant for me. But getting to the other side of it and genuinely feeling really proud of like being part of something, being part of this like community effort. So I wanted to just say, like, sometimes we have to say yes before we feel completely ready. Like, actually, we always have to say yes before we feel completely ready. If we wait until we feel completely ready, we never will be ready because the process of being ready is doing the thing. Action is what builds confidence. Action is what makes you like feel like you can do these things. So you have to say yes and then do them and then build your confidence as you go. Like it's part of the process that you have to undertake as you go through this. And it's really interesting because what I started to notice is when I am surrounding myself in my own business with people I choose and in my friendship circles and in all of the places that I choose to put myself, I am always surrounding myself with highly exceptional people. It is a active choice that I make all the time that the friends that I choose, the people that I work with, the people, the clients that I work with, like they are all highly, highly exceptional humans. And it's really interesting because when you surround yourself with people like that all of the time, they can be the small ego voice that starts to say to you, like, you're not as good. And like maybe you are actually pretty average. And, you know, I started to realize that actually, like, that is part of what I've been having happen over the last little while. And my ego is really, really playing this role of I can feel you're trying to level up and it's scary and I don't want you to. So I'm going to make you doubt yourself. I'm going to make you question yourself. I'm going to make you come back into yourself and be small. And now, because I've done a lot of healing and I've gotten to this point, I could really recognize that in myself. And it was easy to then be like, actually, no, like we're going to say yes to this opportunity. We're going to do this thing. And part of doing this meant that I was suddenly surrounded by a lot more people and a lot more people that, weren't handpicked by me. They were teams that worked in organizations, worked in, the community, like in various different ways. Sometimes they were just participants who were going to come and get involved in the event. And it was a really interesting and really kind of humbling experience for me to have that realization of how my brain works differently to most people. And I feel like sometimes we are so in our own little space and our own little world that we don't actually look at the bigger picture. We don't actually look at how we fit into that society as a whole and where we sit in that process. And there were moments where I would fix a problem that happened, or, I would notice something that wasn't going to work and was going to cause a problem in the future. And everyone around me would be really shocked that I noticed it before it even happened, or that I fixed it like immediately before anything bad happened. And it made me really realize, like, actually, I underplay this skill set so often because I surround myself with such exceptional people who are so good at solving their own problems that I sometimes forget that this is such an asset for me. So I really want to ask you, like, what are your like natural like talents and way of being that is so valuable to other people that you don't even realize, like you don't even notice because it's just so normal to you? And I really want you to like go and ask yourself that question and ask other people around you, like, what is the value that I bring that I don't like see in myself? Because I think it's really important to have that process and think about the value that you can bring. I was chatting to my own coach earlier on, and we were talking about this idea between your ego and like your ego feeling significant and like it's part of, how other people are looking at us and the image that we portray. And then we were talking about this idea of contribution. Now, loads of people have spoken about this concept in loads of different ways. So this is by all means not a unique concept for me, but so many people have said, and even on the podcast, like we've had so many people talk about this idea that they ticked all the boxes, climbed all the ladders, did all of the things, and they still didn't feel happy. They still didn't feel fulfilled. And actually, recently there was an interview where Tony Robbins interviewed Alex Hormozy, who's a really successful entrepreneur and gym owner. And he said the same thing. He said, like, he is super successful, but still there is a level of dissatisfaction with his actual day-to-day life and like what he's doing, because it's not all about money, it's not all about that like significance of like how other people see you. And he was kind of fooled into thinking that it was a little bit, and is now realizing that actually like that's not the case. And I think like this really, like we had this conversation really around, where is the ego trying to keep you in that place of, playing small, like, or what will people think of you, or, you know, what will people say? How will people judge? Versus you just being like, this is something that really lights me up. This is something that really makes me feel good. This is something that, this is how I want to live my life and how I want to show up and how I want to contribute. And I think like this idea of significance versus contribution is such an incredible concept to really sit with yourself and your ego and think about like, where are the places that you are leaning into significance, what other people think of you, how other people expect you to behave, how other people expect you to show up, earn money, live your life, raise your kids, like whatever it is, versus how you actually want to show up, how you actually want to exist in the world, how you actually want to contribute and lean into your own power and your own way of being and your own way of showing up, because that is where the real magic happens. And I think for so many people, if you can find a way that you love to contribute that can also earn you money, you are a purpose-driven entrepreneur that is going to be happy and ideally rich. But actually, when we build businesses of significance, what will other people think of us? How will other people judge us? Is this done in a way that people think is acceptable? That is when we build things that actually don't add value. And this could be in anything, like not just building a business. This could be in your health journey. This could be in how you raise your family. This could be in literally absolutely everything. And it's really, really incredible because I was having another conversation with a friend of mine, actually previous podcast guest. We went for tea and we were having this conversation about social media. And we were talking about kids and we were talking about running and we were talking about like all of these things that we love doing. She does like rock climbing and it's like really, really interesting because one of the big things that we were discussing was this idea of shaming others. So we were talking about how social media has made it seem okay for everyone to have an opinion on everybody else's lives. And there's this crossover of like, oh yeah, but everyone should have freedom of speech. And I absolutely agree that we should have freedom of speech. But I also do not think that freedom of speech gives us the right to judge or be rude to other people on their own journeys, because every single person is on their own journey. So we were talking about the running community as a starting point, because I obviously live in that world. And I was talking about like we've got some really young influencers in the running community who are kind of coming in and they're starting to shame people and saying, "Oh, you can't wear a hydration pack if you're only running 5Ks, that's ridiculous." Or, you can't wear carbon plated shoes if you only run 7 minutes a K, that's ridiculous. You're not fast enough. You can't wear this top if you haven't done this many things, and you can't wear these shorts if aren't a serious runner. And there's like so much red tape and like policing in an activity that has got nothing to do with anybody else, like how you do it and what you do in the running world, like it has nothing to do with anybody else. And we were talking about this idea that like we both feel really sorry for the people on the making end of those comments because they must be so insecure in themselves to feel like they've got to pull everybody down to their own level in order to feel significant, in order to feel like what they're doing is good enough. And it's really challenging because not everybody can afford all of the things. Not everybody, wants to do all of the things. Like somebody could be running with a pack for a 3K run because they've got medical requirements and they're carrying things with them. Like there's so many reasons. There's so many, yeah, like reasons why people do the things that they do. And if somebody is comfortable in a certain type of shoe or a certain type of, lycra or, whatever it is, like the world should just be like mind their own business and let people do these things, let people enjoy the way, like the sports that they do. So we were having this really big conversation about this idea, and like we were talking about like it's the same with kids, with women's body image. We were talking about Tori from her first like 100,000 over in America, and all of the work that she's done around body image and women feeling, comfortable in their bodies as well as in their finances, which I think is incredible. And we were just saying, like, it's really interesting because the world that we live in at the moment is really gearing people towards this idea of significance over contribution. So over actually adding value, actually being helpful, actually caring about the community that you're commenting on, actually, doing something to be the change that the world needs to see. People just sit behind their keyboards, little keyboard warriors, like tapping away and never actually adding any value or any contribution to the communities that they are shaming. And the real challenge here is that if you've got somebody starting a health journey or a weight loss journey or, family, like, trying to start a family, like, there are so many factors that sit behind how somebody ended up in that position, how they want to get out of it, like how difficult it is for them to start that journey and go do that first walk or that first run or, take up that gym class or go and do, like go to a fertility clinic. Like there's so many things that you just don't know what is going on in other people's lives. And if you are in that place of feeling like you have to shame other people's experiences in order for yourself to feel significant, you are the problem. Like you need to go and have therapy and work through and like shift that idea yourself because yes, freedom of speech is vitally important, but freedom of speech doesn't mean that you are free to have an opinion on everybody else's lives, that you are free to shame other people who are starting the journey. And one of the things that I always think is I genuinely, after running my first marathon, I genuinely know how hard it is. And anybody who has ever commented, jokingly, negatively, etc., towards my marathon journey is somebody who's never run a marathon before. They have no idea what they're talking about. The people who are like super impressed and say, like, well done, what you did was incredible, like, really like cheer you on, are the people who've gone through it and actually know what they're talking about. So there's this real idea of like the people who are like making all of these comments and saying, like whether they feel like other people are allowed or not allowed or, can be part of a community. It really all drives from like an own insecurity. It has very little to do with the person that they're trying to impose those rules on. And I think like from a point of view of going through life, like you absolutely can set that boundary and say, actually, your lack of, integrity and confidence and like significance in yourself has nothing to do with me. I'm not going to question my own significance because you have an issue. And it really shifts how you show up for yourself and how you present yourself in the world. And I think when you push yourself to do hard things, whether it is, a big goal that you're trying to achieve in your life, in your business, in your health, in your fitness, like whatever it is, when you actually go out of your comfort zone and say, oh, I'm not 100% comfortable doing this, but I'm going to give it a little go. I'm going to like get a little bit more comfortable every time that I do it. I'm going to build the skill set. It dramatically shifts how you show up as a human in everyday life. And I think that is so important. Like, can we all contribute in a positive way to the world that we're trying to create? Can we all show up in a positive way and say, actually, this isn't just about me. This isn't just about, how much I can make out of this or what I can get out of this. This is about actually how can I contribute to a wider picture? How can I contribute to more people? And this can be in any way. This can be in your business, this can be in your like community, this can be in your friend groups. Like there's so many ways that this can be relevant. But I think it is really relevant. Like it is really important that we have these conversations and that it's just not seen as acceptable to comment on other people's lives, to especially not comment on people's bodies. Like I've seen a number of posts recently around people, commenting on people's bodies, people being overweight or people on their fertility journeys. I follow this incredible lady in America who's had a really, really tough fertility journey, and she is 20 weeks pregnant now, which is amazing. And she's carrying really heavy. She's carrying like she's, in her third, fourth, like in the third trimester already. Um, and so many people feel like they have the right to comment on what she looks like and, say, oh no, you can't be that, you can't be that like far along. You've got to be way further. And it's like, not like nobody has the right to do that. I think like we really need to bring ourselves back around as a society to actually really be kind to people, like be kind on social media, show up in a way that is really adding value, like not just moaning or picking on like the small things. I think a lot of people really, really need to go through this process of thinking about like why do they show up in this way? Why do I show up in this way? Why do you show up in this way? Like when you're saying something negative about somebody, like what is the driving force behind that? Like a lot of the time it'll be, from a place of jealousy, from a place of like what, your moral compass, what you think is right versus wrong. And remembering that like everyone is entitled to their view. Like everyone sees things differently. Everybody is living a different lived experience. So it's a really like important thing, I think, for me massively to really advocate this idea, like whether this is in the running community, whether this is in the healing journey, whether this is in the business community, whether this is with your family and your boundaries, like it's so important that you are being genuine to yourself. You are genuinely contributing to the world in a way that adds value and shows up for people, like not just this idea of significance. What will everyone think of me? Like, will everyone think that I've done well? Like, actually, can you really bring value and like add something back into the world? And I think like this has been a massive shift for me over the past like 6 months in I don't just want to run a business. Like I don't just want to have a way that I make money. I actually want to have a way that increases the contribution and the way that I can contribute to the world. And while I'm still figuring that out and getting really kind of into what does that mean for me and how do I best contribute to the world, I think this journey is about saying yes. It's about saying, these are the things that I really want to experience. These are the things that I really want to do and the way I want to show up and how I want to be seen and how when I think about how I want to be seen, it's not from a place of significance. It's not from a place of people looking at me and, you know, thinking like, oh, she's got it all together, she's got, a successful business. Like none of that really matters. Like I want people to always think like she always has time for me. She's always, kind and considerate. She's always willing to help. She's always like on hand to solve a problem. Like I want people to like genuinely feel that contribution and like feel like they are part of something that I'm creating. So I know that so much more is going to unfold over this year, and I'm just like so grateful to everyone who comes on this journey and listens to the podcast and shares the podcast and the growth. Like, it just makes me really, really proud of everything that this community is creating and all of the guests that we've had like coming through this journey. So I'm super excited. The next couple of weeks, we're going to have some really, really incredible guests coming on the podcast and, really adding some like more value and telling their stories. And I really am looking forward to that. And the next solo episode that you hear from me, I will be back in the UK doing a 4-week contract over there. So it'll be really, really amazing to check in with you all. And thank you so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, please make sure that you share the podcast. And if you can, leave it a review on your favorite platform. It really helps to get the podcast out to more people. And that's what I really want to be possible in the world and like that we live in. So thank you so much for joining me. I will see you guys all in the next solo episode, but I'll see you guys in our next guest interview next week. Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of the Diary of Discovery. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share it with your friends, family, or anyone else you think might benefit from the stories of hope and transformation. Your feedback means the absolute world to us, so please take a moment to leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your reviews help us to reach even more listeners and continue to bring this meaningful content to the world. Until next time, remember, your healing journey is valid. You are never alone, and you have the strength to get through this. Keep shining bright, and we'll see you in the next episode of the Diary of Discovery.